It's our first creative integration lab.
Let's get started. Welcome. I'm so excited. My name is Heidi Dankers. I have a master's in counseling psychology with an emphasis in expressive arts therapy. And I've studied expressive arts therapy from a couple of different lenses after that as well. So, one of the tools that I bring to the table is using some of the expressive arts to help with integration support. And by integration support, we mean after your breathwork session, coming back to baseline, but it can also mean after a breathwork session or in any transformational practice, having tools to help support integrating that wonderful, powerful moment or what you've learned into your life so that change can continue instead of just having the moment and then leaving it and walking away. So, integration support is connecting with tools to help support us to learn and grow. I do have a master's in counseling psychology. I'm not coming to you as a psychologist today. I'm coming to you as someone who really focuses on using all the tools available to help support transformational growth. So that's what we're looking at today. Integration Lab is just a chance to connect and chat. I like the title Integration Lab because lab talks about putting on a scientific mind. To me, it also talks about bringing a sense of curiosity and a playful spirit. So we want to play around with some of these tools to help us integrate. And I thought one of the great things to begin with is the topic as the crow flies, looking at our breathwork practice from a higher viewpoint and looking at how we move from where we are to where we want to be with our breathwork practice. Before we do that, if you could, so that we can all just arrive together today, really feeling yourself wherever you're seated, standing, lying down, noticing how your body's supported, just taking a deep breath and sighing it out. And connecting with your whole self and recognizing that now we're meeting together. So I want to invite you to type into the chat box a word about how you're feeling, a word about how your day has been so far, so that we can acknowledge some of that and let that go so we can be present now. I'm feeling, I would say bubbly. That's a weird word for me, but I would say I'm feeling bubbly today. Feel free to type in the chat box how you're feeling in one word. And I see anticipation. You can also type where you're from, relaxed, expansive. Ooh, some nice words. Stiff, impatient. I love it. I love it. Satisfied, ungrounded. Beautiful. These are wonderful words and so expressive. So, tense. I love that too. Yeah. Depleted. So while we're thinking of all of these words and connecting with our bodies and ourselves, again, feeling the support beneath you of your chair, the floor under your feet. I see anxious, and we have someone joining from Mexico. That's wonderful. Apprehensive. That's beautiful. I'm joining from the United States, the state of Washington, and the city of Seattle. In the city of Seattle, we have this great flock, a couple of flocks, actually many flocks of crows, and they all meet together every night. And it's really super amazing. And I used to live right by the river, and every night I would go for a walk along the river, and the crows would fly over because they would all go to a big meeting every night to talk about where the best resources are, what's happening in the different flocks, and just they would all meet together every night. So around 6 or 7 p.m. in the summer, I would go for a walk and watch the crows flying over. And that is what really inspired me as we were thinking about what to talk about for this first integration lab. And the reason that inspired me is I was thinking about how easy it is for the crows to make that flight. They just fly from one spot to another as the crow flies. The origin of the saying truly just talks about moving quickly from point A to point B. And as I was thinking of my own breathwork practice, I find that moving from point A to point B really fast is what I want. Is there anyone else who that resonates with? Yeah, yeah. I see some hands waving. You can also type in the chat real quick if that resonates with you. So it's easy to have that expectation and then feel really stuck. But in reality, our journey is not usually a direct course. In fact, I picked this particular image because when we talk about progress, scientifically, we've found that it's not just a direct flight. There's topography when you're really delving deeply. And in transformational work, that's what we're doing, is we're moving in more deeply to connect with ourselves. When doing that work, it's not a quick flight. It's not you don't get to bypass all the obstacles. If you bypass all the obstacles, there's no change and there's no transformation. So really, it's a switchback, like in this picture. So when we allow integration, we move forward a little bit, and then we move back, and then we move forward a little more, and we move back, and we move forward a little bit more. And so we are moving forward, but it's a much more slow movement than we expect and then we want to happen. So I want to invite you thinking about your breathwork practice and that slow movement. So thinking about, we're going to lean to the left and then slowly move to the right, but moving forward and back a little bit. And I've got my hands up if you feel comfortable doing this. Just moving really slowly for a minute to feel in your body what it's like. Okay, I'm at about halfway. Wow, I felt like I wasn't moving at all, but I'm at halfway. So a little forward, a little back, a little forward, a little back. It takes a moment. A little forward, a little back, a little forward, a little back. And now here I am, all the way over here. It took some time, but it's nice to know that I made it. Does anyone want to share in the chat or verbally? Yes, nonlinear. How that is for you, making those movements. If you would like to share verbally, there we go. Susan, I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead.
I loved that. Yeah, really, really beneficial to feel it, make it a felt sense in my body, to experience those little micro shifts that then started in one place, not necessarily feeling like there was movement and ending in a very different place. So thank you for bringing that into the body.
Yeah, I'm so glad that worked for you. In your breathwork practice, do you have any idea how you can bring that felt sense to your breathwork practice? Does that question make sense?
Yes, the question makes sense. And I was feeling in my body with that question, actually, when we were doing the practice. And what it reminded me of, what it called forward to me, is how my breath changes within a session, for example. So the session has the 3 parts, and my breath will arrive, begins with the deliberate choice with the breath. And then over time, for me personally, it shifts when my breath shifts. And that reminded me of what we just talked about, is that integration into the body, even within a session.
That's so great. Thank you so much for sharing, Susan. I really appreciate that. That's beautiful. And does anyone feel inspired to say anything about this topic in general, or thinking about moving through breath work or setting up your breath work practice? Feel free to type in chat or raise your hand. If not, that's great. Just an invitation to share. Geeta. Oh, there you go. You should be unmuted. Go ahead.
Hi, I get a little confused because I've done a lot of work, but to me, sometimes the integration takes me into the head. So sometimes I think it's better to let it be and let it work its way through. Like, the body has the wisdom to let it work through my body, because I am very headstrong and I want to make, conclusions about the breath work or, in the integration. So it's hard to find a balance between allowing after my breath work to unfold as it is, or where do I go in, like I want to journal or I want to do something to integrate, but then I find myself going to the head so fast that I don't even know if it's a true integration. So I really struggle with that piece, and I tend to just let it be, knowing who I am. I just say, okay, it's going to unfold as it is. My body's registered it. So I, maybe something on that, how to navigate through those two extremes.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it is, I love hearing you say that it's a balance. And I love that you've noticed that for you, you do move into your head very quickly. So if anyone else is similar, usually suggestions around support for integration for that are some of the things you're already doing and you already mentioned. And those are doing body-based integration. Movement is great. After a session, doing a walk. For me, until recently, I could not find words or move into my head at all. So I was the opposite of what you were describing. And for me, what I had to do before I could even write or journal about what happened is I would have to draw a mandala, which is just a circle and putting something inside the circle. And sometimes I would scribble and sometimes I would just do dots, and I would use whatever I had at hand and just put whatever inside the circle. And that would help me shift out of the expanded state of awareness and move into my regular brainwave state that then allowed me to access words. So for each of us, it is different. And what Geeta has shared is really great. And what I wanted to highlight for this is, what is it like for you? What is it like after your breathwork practice, after a session, or after a week of sessions? What is it like for you? And what do you need to support you so that you can keep learning and growing and moving and changing? Thank you so much for that share. That was beautiful. And I see Star has a share, and you should be unmuted now.
Okay, thanks, Heidi.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, hi. Hello, everyone. Just want to say that, like, oh my God, this is such a good topic, because I've really struggled with, not necessarily the integration. Well, yeah, the integration period and how you record what has happened for you, so I've tried to draw, I've tried to write it down, I will voice record, but there's something in me. And so this is what I want to talk about, is that saying it's in you, and, there's no need to put it down. That's coming up for me. But, I want to make sure that, so I still do play a little bit with, like, writing something down. But if I feel it, it's like it's integrated somewhere inside already. And yeah, just there's not a need necessarily to keep a record of it. But, I hope that what I'm getting is correct. You know what I'm saying?
I do. And I think that also brings up another point that I'm so delighted that you're bringing up. And that is, it's different for each of us. The journey is different. We each have a different flight that we make. We cross different topography. Sometimes we might need to write it down, and sometimes we might need not to write it down. And it's really tough to not have a set answer. Many of us, especially in the Western world, are very used to being told how it is and what to do with a very set steps, with a set of steps that we must follow. And there is a set of steps for each of us to follow. But in order to find our steps, we need to connect with our inner guiding intelligence. So it sounds to me, Star, like you are connecting to and listening to what's right for you. Often when Michael responds to people as they bring up and share after a session, as they bring up what's going on with them, often what he has to share, he will say, if it feels right, really connecting with your inner guru, your inner guiding, your inner intelligence, really connecting with that and listening to that. And, sometimes it's a little bit scary for me, because I wonder, oh, am I opting out? Am I being lazy? Am I skipping steps because I don't want to do the work? Am I pressing myself enough or not? And really, it is a practice. And I think asking those questions is a part of that practice. The more we connect with our inner guide, the more we check in with ourselves and say, hey, how do I feel? How does my body feel? How do my emotions feel? What do I need in this moment? The more we connect with that and wonder, am I opting out? Am I not opting out? Sometimes we might not know the answer right away, but the more times we do that, the less and less we'll be left wondering. The more we'll be able to listen to that inner guiding intelligence, and it will help us move through the journey that we need to take, that is transformational for us. So I really love that. Thank you so much for sharing, Star. That's beautiful.
So can I just say one more thing about that,
Sure.
Heidi?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's why I'm trying to challenge myself to talk at the end of class when we're sharing, which I'm not always successful with, but that's another way for me to kind of flesh it out, make an imprint, bring it into the world, but this stuff is hard to piece together sometimes. So yeah, it's a practice, I'll just keep going. And I really appreciate being.
It is a practice. And again, that's why I like that I'm calling this series Integration Lab, because it's a chance to really experiment. And maybe you try for 3 sessions doing it a certain way, and then you try for 3 sessions doing it another way, and you see which is working best for you in the moment. And that curiosity and that playful spirit is really supportive and really does help us slowly move over as we go. It helps us continue on the path that's the right transformational path for us. And I see Pamela has a share. And Pamela, you should be unmuted.
Hi, I just wanted to say how wonderful this has been and so helpful, because I come to a lot of the sessions and each one is different. And I don't even try really hard to even do the breathing right. I just come. I'm just here. I just show up. And each time it's different. Sometimes my body moves around. Sometimes it is totally silent and still. Sometimes I fall asleep. Sometimes I have really strong feelings, crying or whatever. And then other times I don't at all. And sometimes I'm just really like way out there thinking about what I'm going to do next or what I just did or what, all kinds of distractions and whatever. And what I've learned is to just let it be whatever it is. But then sometimes I also worry about, am I doing it right? Maybe I should be, trying harder. But what you're saying seems to be confirming that I really am doing what I need to be doing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that share as well, Pamela. Thank you so much. Who else worries about doing it right? That's a whole thing. Yeah. Again, we're very often unlearning through our breathwork practice. We're very often unlearning that need to do it right and to do those set steps, and instead learning how to listen to ourselves and connect with our whole self, body, mind, emotion, spirit, all of ourselves, to really connect and listen to our inner guiding intelligence that's there. But we're taught repeatedly, and outside influence is often saying, no, you must be this, or it must look this way, or it must happen in these set steps. And because so much of that is really pushed from the outside world, it's really easy to think it has to be that way, and that there is a right way to do something. But with breath work, that's really a large part of my practice, is understanding that if I've done it right. So I love what you had to say, Pamela. Thank you so much for sharing. And then we have a share from Ina.
I just wanted to share what Star had said. I think really resonated with me a lot. I think the way I was sort of taught integration or understood what it meant was in a breath work I did in a slightly different type somewhere else, but in person in like this women's retreat. And it was basically just giving yourself time to be, basically lying down on your mat and doing nothing, just being and feeling for whatever amount of time was available, maybe half an hour or whatever. And that was in my mind what it meant. So when I heard of say Michael saying, oh, you can draw, you can write, you can express some other way, or I was like, oh, that is so interesting. Like, I've never thought of that. I've never been taught that. I've never so that was a different thing, but I never felt that called to do that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe if somebody showed me before, I would have, because that would be a way that was taught, but it wasn't. So I just find it interesting also, but I always want to share, or often I want to somehow verbalize it, but maybe not in writing. That's why sometimes I raise my hand and I'm like, I want to say, because like voicing and sounding it out can be like hearing yourself talk about it somehow makes it land somewhere deeper in the system there, in the nervous system, maybe. But also I had recently this realization talking to my therapist where I always want to share and almost like to show my progress, to show myself or whoever is listening that, oh, this is what I learned, or this is what happened, and this is how it's growth. But then I realized just recently, maybe last week, that actually I don't have to say it out loud. Like, I don't have to prove it to anybody else. I can just let it be inside me, and I don't have to say it. And I don't have to let like my therapist or you or whoever know. I can just be with it. And I felt like this was a next level of skill, like to just have it and hold it myself without having to share. So like what Star was saying, you know, I just felt so close to that, of like just being with it and not having to express or have somebody else even witness. Maybe they just witness through being in the energy field, but not like humanly expressively by doing, making, writing. So I don't know. I find it so interesting. So, and thank you. This is such a great topic. It's just like expanding our experience and knowledge and what do we do? How do we deal with it? This is very cool. So thank you so much. I'm really glad you're doing this workshop, SLAB.
Thank you, Ina. I really appreciate your share. I'm really struck by some of what you were saying. There is a very powerful concept that I use as a tool a lot in my own integration and with clients. And that is the concept of witnessing for ourselves, the self as witness. And I heard some of that in your share. And that is a very powerful tool. Sometimes that can be done through journaling and writing it, but it can also be done exactly how you explained it, what you do for yourself, sharing, verbalizing, hearing your own share. Sometimes I suggest for people working on integration, I suggest that they record a video of themselves talking and then they play it back to themselves the next day and listen, and then write some key words about what they notice as they listen to themselves. To witness for themselves. A witness is a powerful thing. It helps things really sink in and feel more real. So I love that. Thank you so
Hey,
much
I
for
have
sharing.
just one more thing.
Mhm.
That's, to me, that's where I felt like a different skill set and growth. It was like, because I usually like, and I've done recording videos and things, but to me, it had a sense of that I'm still trying to show it off as well somehow, so that others can witness and the others can somehow see my growth. But here I said in the knowing that actually I don't even want a record of it, even for myself, because I sometimes write diaries and I look later years and it's interesting. And otherwise I'm afraid to forget. So on one hand, I see the use and recording it. But this felt like actually, even if I like think that I forgot, my system didn't forget. Like my body absorbs it and it remembers, because we know body keeps a score, body remembers, right? So it's not, I don't need a record for myself later or anybody else or to prove anything, but I just like, because I am different, I am changed now from what I was yesterday or a year ago. That's the proof. Like it's already in the pudding there. So like I don't need to even show it to myself or record it. And that felt like it's a higher skill somehow internally, because I just hold it within and that's enough.
Mhm.
So that was my recent like piece of growth that was kind of interesting. But like there's definitely place for recording and drawing and all ways of expression. And it can, I acknowledge it can change from day to day and how we need it. But this was just like my newest, aha, I got this.
Yeah.
And yeah, I felt like for me, it was resonating with the stars sharing about just being there and not needing to record.
I just hold it inside and that's enough. That's beautiful. And it's gorgeous that you're listening to
And
your
maybe it's the
intuition.
dropping of that need for approval from somebody else or even myself later to read and say, oh, I learned this. But it's just like, I don't actually need that approval anymore because I know, and that's enough.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
to me, that was like a whole new acquired skill. It took years to get to that point.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Wow.
Thank you so much. Let's continue. Holly, you should be unmuted.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to touch on what Ina had said. I am such a huge fan of synchronicities. I'm reading a book right now called Oneness, and it's by Rasha. And the chapter I happened to read this morning mentioned pretty much exactly what she was talking about, being a witness to the changingness of your own essence, I suppose you'd say. And it mentioned, that as you change, how did it go? That even if you change, how you don't need the validation really of others. And I wanted to be a witness of that for her. Even though, she didn't need the validation of that, but I just, again, with the synchronistic piece of it. So Heidi, this is wonderful. And I love it. So I'm going to stay.
That's a beautiful, beautiful synchronicity. Amanda, let me go ahead and unmute you.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
One thing that came up, I don't know yet really if it's a question, a comment, or anything, but so when you were talking about, our progress and going forward and then going backwards, going forward, backwards, I'm like, I kind of didn't, I'm like, well, is it ever going backward? Like it feels like it's always moving forward, even though emotionally you might be going backwards. Like negative emotions might be going backwards. but I feel like you're always moving forward. So I guess I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that that is very true. I don't think about those moving back as truly going backwards. Sometimes we need to touch something more than once. We need to make the steps and then come back. There's a term called titration that talks about slowly integrating and slowly, it's like mixing. It's like mixing. The spoon goes around and around the bowl. And it's never a waste because you're mixing things together. You're smoothing it out. You're incorporating it into a single whole. So Amanda, that's beautiful. I love that you've brought that up because are you ever going backwards? And again, negative emotions, I don't personally believe that they're negative. I believe that all the emotions have a reason for being, and they're very powerful and supportive if we can learn what they have to tell us. So I super resonate with what you've brought up, that path backwards is not really backwards. It's integrating, it's mixing it in and then bringing in more and mixing it in and bringing in more. Because, if you're mixing up some cookies and you just dump all the flour in at once, you get really big clumps. And it's very frustrating. But if you can sift a little in and stir it together and sift a little more and stir it together, then it's this slow incorporation that allows everything to mix together smoothly so that you can bake those delicious cookies or what have you.
Yeah, I love the analogy. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the share. Yes, it's never a waste. I love that. Yeah. Well, thank you all. I hope that you'll spend some time really connecting with this idea of how you're making sense of your breathwork practice, how you're moving through it, what works for you, allowing yourself to not do it right, but to just do it and let it be. Those are some of the things we talked about. Thinking about your breathwork practice and thinking about that movement towards growth and change, you can take a look at a map. Look at rivers. Rivers, look at how they move through a map. What do rivers do in a landmass? Think about that and free write about your breathwork practice. Rivers are water. Often people think water is symbolic of emotions. What part do emotions play in your breathwork practice? Where do you feel stuck with it? Where do you feel like it's flowing and moving? How is that working for you as you join breathwork sessions? And you might also journal about mountains. Mountains are earth, and there's mountains and there's ravines and valleys. Mountains are hard to climb, but then you get this great view. Ravines sometimes get in the way of where we want to go. It's a dive down deep, and then you have to climb back up the other side. What supports you in your breathwork practice? What are you covering? What are you climbing? What obstacles are there that you have to move around? Just free write about it and see if anything comes up. What I like to encourage people to do is after they free write about something, and free write just means write whatever pops into your head. No filter, no judgment. It can be gibberish. It doesn't have to make sense. It's a way of brainstorming with a pen and pencil. So just writing it down and then read it back another day and highlight anything that really jumps out at you. And then just let that percolate and let that be. Like we heard in some of the shares, just letting it be without making any decisions or judgment about it. So that's something that you can do if you enjoy a little follow-up work between now and the next time we meet. Thank you to everyone who shared. Thank you for feedback. If you have more feedback about the format of this particular new thing we're doing, the Integration Lab, you can email that feedback to admin@breathworkonline.com. admin@breathworkonline.com. We're going to be doing 2 more of these, and if they're popular, we'll continue doing them 1 a month. We love getting feedback because it helps us bring what you need for support. So I really love all the shares, and I love hearing a dialogue. Before we go, Go ahead and take in a deep breath and sigh it out. Letting go of anything that didn't resonate for you, knowing that you don't have to incorporate that, knowing that you have an inner guiding intelligence that is there and can let you know what's right for you. So take in what's right, let go what you don't need. And I really invite you to do a one-word checkout. I can read them as people go. My checkout is, I think, full. Like I've just eaten a really great meal. I have grateful, clear, peaceful. I'm going to type full in there. Tickled, gratitude. Ooh, thankful, gorgeous. I love all these words. Validated, happy, beautiful, beautiful. I love it. Here. I love that. That's great. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to stay on and just read the checkouts as people go until everyone's gone. And again, feel free to send any feedback to us. Really appreciate all of you being here. Thank you.